So if you're an organisation that is trying to have a positive impact in the world, the theory of change is really your pathway to impact. So rather than calling it a theory of change, I often call it the impact pathway. So it sets out who you're trying to reach, what are you doing, unpacking what are you doing, how does that really create the impact that you're trying to achieve, and what are really the steps that you take as an organisation towards that. So it sets out that whole pathway, so you're really clear from the start of where you're starting to where you're trying to get to and what are the steps along the way. So I think most businesses aren't actually looking for a theory of change, they're looking for help with impact. And they have a clear idea that they're trying to achieve an impact as an organisation, and they really want to think about what do they need to do that. So some may think about impact strategy, so what's their strategy for impact? Some organisations come to it from measurement, so they may say, okay, well, we need to measure our impact so we can be better at achieving impact. So I think all of these terms which are around what is your impact, how do you get support for impact, how do you measure it better, how do you achieve it better? I think a theory of change really is a foundation for all of this because it really sets out that pathway to impact that you can then use to inform your strategy, you can use it to inform what you do day to day, you can use it to inform your impact measurement. So your question is what stage should they be at? I would say they should be at the theory of change is from the beginning, because I think if you're serious about impact, if you really have a vision of impact you want to have in the world, you really need to understand that pathway to impact. So I work with a lot of organisations that come to theory of change later, and they have made assumptions about what they're doing, about the impact that it has, about why they work in a particular way. And I think a theory of change then helps them unpack that and say, actually, that assumption was wrong, or yes, that assumption was right. So I think if you are strategic about impact, if you're really trying to think through the building blocks towards impact, I would say it needs to be there at the beginning. But usefully, it can be there at any time, because I think it's a really useful tool to really reflect on what you're doing, to recognise what's working well, and then to think about where the gaps might be. So theory of change came from a charity sector. So it really, if you think about charities, they're at the heart of what charities do is their impact. So that theory of change developed as a tool to help charities really be clearer about that. But I would say theory of change is relevant to any organisation that really has a change that they seek to make in the world. The B Corps talk about it as an impact business model, but it's really if you see impact as a problem in the world that you're trying to solve, theory of change helps you think about that pathway to solve that problem. So it's relevant to any organisation that has that focus. I think that's a great question, because a lot of theories of changes are developed as a sort of document that sits on the shelf, and we have our theory of change, you give it to an investor or give it to a funder, and then you don't think about it again. What I see theory of change as is a living document. It's the roadmap to impact. So it's something that you are using, maybe not day to day, but it's something really embedded in the organisation. So I see with large organisations particularly, it's a really helpful tool to help people understand their place in the big picture. What a theory of change does, it unpacks everything that you do in a way. So every staff member, every function in the organisation should be able to see where it fits into the theory of change. I would say it's something you should use with your induction with staff. It's something you should use when you're developing strategy, you reflect on your strategy. It's something you should use in your reflective practice, your learning around what's working, what's not working. Coming back to say, well, these are the results that we're achieving. Are these fitting with our theory of change? Are we on track? Are we not on track? Does it mean our theory of change needs revisiting? We need to rethink this. So I would see it as something that's really embedded into the organisation and it's part of day-to-day work. But periodically, yes, I would say every time you're thinking about strategy, you would start with theory of change and use it as that. Best way to get in touch with me is through my website, which is socialperformance.net, or reach out to me on LinkedIn, LinkedIn Anton Simanowitz.